Hi, I'm Lacey Gould, and I'm the Livestock Nutritionist and Conservation Agronomist at Chinook Applied Research Association. I carry out conservation projects such as riparian health assessments, shelter belt stewardship projects, and also I assist producers in the special areas 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the MD of Acadia with ration formulation, the environmental farm plan, funding opportunities with the Canadian Agricultural Partnership, as well as the classroom agriculture program. So at CARA, we try and incorporate safety into all of our events that we work with in all our workshops and our correspondence. Whether it be a crop walk where we discuss machinery safety to a calving clinic where we bring in a livestock safety topic and like handling safety. We also emphasize farm safety on our media outlets like Facebook and Twitter, and we also put out a newsletter and try and add safety into every newsletter. We work with agricultural societies on bringing farm safety to the area, and so one of the big farm safety events we try and bring in each year is a farm safety camp day for the kids. And so it's a full day camp where it has individual sessions that are based on safety in each area, whether it be the large animal safety, crop, grain safety, water safety, chemical safety. And so each of the kids go around to the different stations and learn about the different safeties and how to deal with them. What are the dangers involved in each aspect? We also do a lot of workshops for farmers and producers. And we are hosting an equine clinic that talks about zoonotic diseases, horse handling safety, and sharps injury. So we're talking about how to handle sharps and how to administer needles and such. And so it's a safety topic. And we try and include that on a lot of our events. Exactly. A lot of our workshops are geared towards the producer level. However, we do enter the schools as much as we can, and whenever they ask us for any kind of safety, we try and bring him down. The other year we had Curtis Weber. He came down and presented to the school. It was a power line incident with him where he lost some limbs, and it was a very powerful message to the students about being around power lines, and so we did bring him down to chat about that. Farm safety is very important and most often overlooked. Together, farm safety keeps everyone healthy and keeps a vibrant community, so it's very important to keep educating on it. Of course, one of the safest things a farmer can do is focus on their own safety by taking proper precautions, whether it's if you're dealing with a new project or a new equipment, educating yourself on the safety of that equipment and showing the people around you, whether it be your kids, whether it be your workers, whether it be your neighbors or family, that you do take those precautions. It installs in them that they need to take those precautions, whether it be your kids later in life, right? Doing such things as also, if you feel fatigued, to stop, right? To not push yourself, because not only would it might cause bodily harm or safety for yourself, but it can also lead to costly mistakes on your operations. So it's very important to stop when you feel tired. The biggest thing we found, especially with kids, is building habits. So it's better to build a good habit. So walking around that tractor, showing your kid that that's what you do before you get in a tractor is walk behind it, walk around it, and it'll build a habit with that kids, right? With those kids that, when they go out, they walk around that tractor. And so let's make habits, good habits. Let's build those good habits around the farm and take those safety precautions from when they're younger, and they'll be doing them when they're older. Well, some of the major causes of farm accidents are when people rush to get tasks done. So they're rushing, whether it be because something broke down, or they're late to seed, or the weather has been bad. So what happens is they're rushing to get something done, and they don't take the walk around the tractor, and they don't think to put the safety guard on something or wear the proper clothing. They just run out of the house not thinking of putting on the proper boots or the hard hat or whatever they should be using at that time. Also, lack of training, I find too, with some farmers, whether it be the farmer level where they're getting into a new enterprise. Maybe they were cattle farmers to start and they're getting into the crop section. Sometimes they don't take the proper safety measures on spraying chemicals or on seeding or on those bigger machineries that they're not used to. Other times I find that kids, they're put into situations where maybe they're not quite ready to drive that tractor yet, and they're putting the tractor a little too early, and that can lead to some accidents, weather issues, equipment failure, and general stress. I find that farmers, when they get stressed, what happens is they'll miss doing the safety protocols, or depression can happen, and they're not caring about their safety at that point. And so stresses can be a big factor in the cause of farm accidents. Like I said, it is very important. We find that if the farmer's not caring about his own safety, then that's when the accidents happen. And if they're not concerned about, if they're just not quite there, and they're not focusing on the job at task, they're running large equipment a lot of times, they're running, or they're dealing with cattle in stressful situations at times if you have them in the corral. And so what happens is, if they're not focused completely on that task, if other things are bothering them within their life and they have those other stresses and those depression, they're not working to their full ability, and they can miss steps. And if they miss steps, then that can cause injury and accidents. Well, individuals that are not farmers. Well, there's two situations that happen quite often. There's the meeting cattle on the road during a cattle drive, and then there's moving large equipment on the road, right? They're behind a seeder or behind a combine. So let's talk about the cattle drive first. The first thing you guys, an individual who's not a farmer who meets cattle on the road, the first thing to do is to stop or slow down quite a bit, and that's not to 60, that's to like 10. And you're trying to figure out, are those cattle moving towards you, or are they moving against you? If they're moving towards you, the best thing you can do, if there's not someone out front flagging you, telling you what to do at that point, is to pull over as far as you can, or into an approach, and just wait for the cattle to follow you, or wait till the cattle pass you, or if someone waves you through, then you can go through. But the best thing is to just stop right there and see what the cattle, have the cattle pass you until you have further instructions. If the cattle are moving away from you, 100% of the time there's going to be someone behind the cattle, and they can tell you what to do, whether it's safe to move through those animals, or whether it's safe to just sit back because they're going to be turning in like a mile down the road, or maybe they're turning in 100 feet. And so, you're not going to have to wait very long. A lot of times they'll tell you can drive slowly through the cattle. If you do drive slowly through the cattle, you got to make sure you're slow enough that you don't scare the cattle, spook the cattle, or push the cattle, because asphalt especially can be very slippery, especially if the manure from the animal in front of them gets on the road, and it can get very slippery for those animals. So if you spook the animal, they'll slip, they'll fall, they'll injure themselves. Horses can also slip and fall with riders on them on the asphalt. So you got to be very careful when you're pushing through those animals. The other thing is watch out for cattle dogs, because cattle dogs they're focused on what they're doing. They're focused on moving those cows, and they're not always looking at the vehicles. Okay, they're not always noticing the vehicles. So cattle dogs can move very quickly, especially around the buck, getting those animals going. So just, keep a watch out for the dogs as well as the horses and the cows when you're pushing through. Right, so when large equipment is moving down the road, the biggest thing is to slow right down and don't tailgate, because I find a lot of people get so close to that farmer that the farmer can't see them. And so that's, I guess, the biggest problem is the farmer doesn't know they're behind him, so they won't pull over at the next approach and let them pass, or they won't, help them pass because they don't know they're behind them. So stay farther back so they can see. Make sure they're not making a left turn before you pass them, because sometimes you won't see the single lights. Sometimes they don't have them. Sometimes they're just not visible or very visible. So you don't know when they're turning left, and that can cause a big problem if you do pass them when they're turning left. Another thing is stick to the rules of the road. Don't pass them on a solid line. And a lot of people do, but don't, because what could happen is you never know the solid line is there for a reason, right? And so, wait a bit, make sure he knows he's behind you. If he is pulling over and letting you pass, then you can pass. But just let him know you're there. They don't want to hold you up. They're just trying to get a job done. The biggest thing is having an emergency communication plan is essential. So if you know where people are and what they're doing, and also if there is an emergency, what to do. Okay, if you communicate well and you know that the last check is at 9 p.m. and they should be back at this time. And if they're not back at this time, they need to call and say they're dealing with a calf and cow at that time. If you don't do that, you can someone could be out for hours and be hurt in a field and no one would know, right? So it's really, really good to communicate, whether if you're on your own on the farm, and then call your mom, call your sister, call your brother, saying you're heading out to check the animals. If you're on a 24-hour check on the animals, try and have a few people doing that, because if you don't have a few people doing that, you're going to build fatigue, you're going to build stress, you're going to be too tired, you're not going to be as aware of those animals. And those animals at that time, they have the maternal instincts of a mother, and they will protect their young. And a lot of producers a lot of people might think that cow has been fine the last 2 years of calving, but this year she might not be fine with you going up to her and being in her face like you were the last 2 years. So you always got to be cautious of the maternal instincts in cattle. They can be dangerous. Always make sure if you do have an animal in a corral and you're helping it out, whether it be you're trying to get it into a squeeze chute, a maternity pen, whatever you're trying to do, make sure there's an easy access for you to get out of that corral. Okay, make sure you know how to get out of there, you know how to safely get out of there, because that animal can turn on you. Also plan ahead, make sure your fences are in good repair so you're not worrying about all these animals getting out. Yeah, develop a plan, talk to everyone about it, talk to your kids about it. What's happening this calving season, what we're looking at safety, talk about, to your farm workers, farm safety is important and it is real. And so the biggest thing is to stay safe, be educated, and communicate. The more you do that, and build good habits from the start around the farm, start doing the safety in the beginning, especially with your children, and then they'll do it and they'll stay safer on the farm.